October 25th, 1944, 02:47 hours. The bridge of Imperial Japanese Navy battleship Yamashiro cuts through tropical darkness of Surigao Strait like a steel cathedral carrying death toward its destiny. Admiral Nishimura adjusts his binoculars with steady hands that have commanded warships for 3 decades. Scanning black waters ahead for American forces, his intelligence reports claim wait somewhere beyond the horizon. His 14-inch guns, 36 massive barrels of destruction capable of hurling shells 25 miles with devastating accuracy, represent the pinnacle of naval warfare tradition, stretching back 4 centuries to the first line of battle engagements. Behind him follows battleship Fuse with identical firepower, heavy cruiser Mogami bristling with 8-inch guns, and 4 destroyers forming a classic battle line that has dominated naval warfare since Nelson's victories at Trafalgar. What Nishimura cannot know, what his optical rangefinders cannot detect, what his traditional night fighting training cannot prepare him for, is that 22 miles ahead, American radar screens already paint his ships as bright electronic signatures, marking their speed, course, and formation with precision impossible in the age of sail and steel that is about to end forever. Unknown to the confident Japanese admiral studying darkness through his binoculars, Commander Robert Phillips aboard destroyer USS McDermott stares at a green radar screen that reveals enemy positions with clarity that would seem magical to previous generations of naval officers. The SG Surface Search Radar, one of over 1,000 such systems American industry has produced and installed on destroyers throughout the Pacific Fleet, penetrates night and weather with electronic eyes that see everything while remaining invisible to Japanese detection. Phillips watches enemy contacts approaching at steady intervals, their range, bearing, and speed calculated automatically by fire control systems that represent American technological revolution in naval warfare. His Mark 15 torpedoes, products of American research and development that solve previous reliability problems plaguing earlier weapons, wait in tubes with 90% probability of running true to targets that Japanese commanders believe remain undetected in protective darkness. The battle about to unfold will demonstrate how American industrial capacity to produce radar systems, advanced torpedoes, and coordinated communication networks has created tactical advantages so overwhelming that traditional naval courage and centuries of fighting experience cannot bridge the technological gap that makes this engagement a mathematical certainty rather than a contest of equals meeting in honorable combat. 27 American destroyers move through black waters with coordination impossible before radio communication and radar guidance, their captains receiving continuous updates on enemy positions from centralized command posts equipped with plotting tables and electronic displays that track every movement of Nishimura's approaching force. Captain Jesse Coward, commanding Destroyer Squadron X-1, coordinates torpedo attacks using VHF radio systems that Japanese cannot intercept or decode, planning simultaneous strikes from multiple directions that will converge on enemy battleships like closing fingers of an electronic fist. His destroyers carry over 300 Mark 15 torpedoes between them, each weapon representing months of American industrial production and testing that solved metallurgical and guidance problems that plagued previous designs, creating underwater missiles capable of breaking battleship hulls designed to resist direct hits from 16-inch armor-piercing shells. The mathematical precision with which American forces maneuver in total darkness, maintaining perfect formation distances and attack timing, demonstrates technological superiority so complete that Japanese tactical doctrine developed over decades of training and combat experience has become instantly obsolete without Nishimura realizing that his confident advance toward enemy contact carries him not toward glorious battle, but toward annihilation, planned and executed with industrial efficiency. Admiral Nishimura believes his approach through Surigao Strait follows classical naval tactical principles that have governed successful engagements since ironclad warships replaced wooden sailing vessels, advancing in battle line formation that maximizes forward firepower while minimizing target profiles exposed to enemy guns. His confidence rests on Japanese superior night fighting training, individual ship excellence, and Bushido spirit that compensates for numerical disadvantages through superior seamanship and willingness to close range where courage matters more than technology. Previous victories at Guadalcanal and Java Sea proved Japanese night fighting capabilities against American forces caught unprepared for close-range surface combat, reinforcing belief that traditional naval skills and aggressive tactics overcome material disadvantages when commanders possess proper fighting spirit and crews trained to standards of perfection demanded by Imperial Navy tradition. What Nishimura cannot comprehend, what Japanese naval doctrine cannot accommodate, is that American technological revolution has transformed naval warfare so completely that traditional tactics have become suicide missions, that courage without electronic support has become meaningless sacrifice, and that centuries of naval fighting experience count for nothing against opponents who see everything, communicate instantly, and coordinate attacks with precision impossible using optical instruments and visual signals that defined naval combat since humans first fought battles on water. 0300 hours. Electronic contact. USS McDermott's radar operator, Seaman First Class Tommy Chen, watches bright pips appear on his green scope at range 22,000 yards, calling out bearings and distances that reveal enemy formation with crystalline clarity, while Japanese lookouts strain their eyes against impenetrable darkness, seeing nothing but black water stretching to invisible horizons. The American destroyer force begins coordinated approach maneuvers, guided by radar information shared instantly across squadron frequencies, each captain receiving updated enemy positions every 30 seconds through radio networks that Japanese cannot detect or intercept, creating informational advantage so complete that the approaching battle resembles a coordinated hunt rather than engagement between equals. Commander Phillips studies plotting board updates showing enemy speed steady at 14 knots, course unchanging, formation maintaining perfect intervals that reveal Japanese confidence in their invisibility, unaware that American electronic eyes track their every movement with accuracy surpassing daylight visual observation. The technological gap between opposing forces has grown so vast that Japanese ships advance toward contact like blind men walking toward cliff edges, while American destroyers maneuver with precision of surgeons operating under bright lights, seeing every detail of targets that believe themselves hidden in protective darkness that has become their death shroud. Admiral Nishimura notices unusual activity in waters ahead, brief glimpses of phosphorescence that might indicate ship wakes, distant sounds that suggest engine noise, but his optical instruments reveal nothing concrete enough to justify course changes or increased alert status. Japanese radar technology remains primitive compared to American systems, providing minimal tactical advantage and requiring optimal weather conditions to achieve even basic detection capabilities that American SG radars exceed effortlessly in any weather, day or night, at ranges that seem impossible to officers trained in visual observation and optical range finding. The Admiral's confidence in Japanese superior night fighting abilities rests on decades of training that emphasize keen eyesight, patient observation, and intuitive seamanship that compensated for technological limitations. But these traditional skills prove useless against opponents whose electronic systems eliminate human limitations and provide godlike awareness of tactical situations developing beyond visual detection range. Nishimura's advancing battle line maintains formation discipline and gun readiness that represent pinnacle of traditional naval training. But mechanical perfection in outdated tactics cannot bridge technological gaps that make Japanese excellence in obsolete skills meaningless against American innovation that has redefined what naval combat means in the electronic age that began without Japanese understanding that the old age had ended. 03:15 hours. Attack phase initiation. Captain Coward's voice crackles across destroyer squadron frequencies, coordinating torpedo attacks with precision timing that relies on radio communication and radar guidance, impossible in previous naval engagements, turning individual ship actions into orchestrated symphony of destruction directed against enemy forces that cannot detect coordination happening around them. USS McDermott increases speed to 28 knots. Her four 5-inch guns trained out while torpedo crews prepare Mark 15 weapons that represent culmination of American research into underwater ballistics, explosive chemistry, and guidance systems that solved reliability problems that had plagued previous torpedo designs, creating weapons with 85% hit probability against large targets, compared to 40% achieved by earlier models. Commander Phillips watches radar screen showing perfect attack geometry developing as American destroyers approach from multiple bearings simultaneously. Their movements coordinated through radio networks that enable tactical coordination, impossible when individual captains relied on visual signals and personal initiative to execute attack plans developed before electronic communication transformed naval warfare from individual heroics into systematic application of overwhelming technological superiority that reduces enemy courage to irrelevant gesture against mathematical certainty of coordinated destruction. Approaching through darkness that protects attackers while exposing targets to electronic observation and precision targeting. Japanese lookouts aboard Yamashiro finally detect American destroyers at range 6,000 yards, but their reports reveal only individual contacts appearing and disappearing in darkness, providing no indication of coordinated attack developing from multiple directions simultaneously with timing precision that requires electronic coordination beyond Japanese technological capabilities. Nishimura orders battle stations and prepares to engage detected American forces using traditional tactics that emphasize individual ship gunnery and night fighting skills that have served Japanese Navy effectively in previous engagements. But his optical fire control systems cannot track fast-moving targets maneuvering in darkness, while American radar-directed weapons maintain perfect tracking solutions that update continuously regardless of visibility conditions or target evasion efforts. The battleship's massive 14-inch guns represent awesome destructive power capable of sinking any destroyer with single direct hit, but their optical fire control systems require visual contact or illumination to achieve accuracy, while American destroyers attack using electronic guidance that eliminates human limitations and weather factors that have governed naval gunnery since cannons first appeared on warships centuries ago, when combat ranges measured hundreds of yards rather than miles, and electronic systems existed only in imagination of science fiction writers who could not envision technological revolution that would make their wildest fantasies routine reality. 03:27 hours. Torpedo spread launch. Commander Phillips gives firing order that releases 10 Mark 15 torpedoes from USS McDermott in carefully calculated spread designed to bracket battleship Yamashiro regardless of evasive action. Each weapon representing months of American industrial production and testing that created underwater missiles capable of traveling 4 miles at 46 knots with explosive warheads containing 750 pounds of torpex, an advanced explosive 50% more powerful than TNT that can penetrate battleship armor designed to resist direct hits from 16-inch armor-piercing shells weighing 2,700 pounds. The mathematical precision of torpedo launch solutions, calculated using radar data and mechanical fire control computers, demonstrates American technological approach to naval warfare that treats combat as engineering problem solved through superior equipment and systematic application of overwhelming material advantages rather than individual heroism and traditional fighting skills that Japanese tactics emphasize. Across Surigao Strait, 26 additional American destroyers launched coordinated torpedo attacks, timed to arrive simultaneously at enemy formation, creating underwater death wall impossible to evade using traditional maneuvering that relies on visual observation of individual torpedo wakes rather than electronic detection of coordinated mass attacks approaching from multiple bearings with timing precision that requires radio communication and centralized fire control coordination beyond Japanese technological capabilities to achieve or counter effectively. Admiral Nishimura watches phosphorescent torpedo wakes streaking toward his flagship through black waters, counting at least 15 individual tracks converging on Yamashiro from different angles simultaneously. Realizing his battle line faces coordinated attack beyond anything Japanese naval doctrine prepared him to counter or survive. Traditional evasive maneuvering proves inadequate against torpedo spreads designed to cover all possible escape routes, while his own ships lack radar guidance necessary to detect and target fast-moving American destroyers that appear and disappear in darkness, like electronic ghosts immune to optical fire control systems that have governed naval gunnery for centuries. The Admiral's growing understanding that his force faces technological superiority rather than tactical challenge represents a moment when Japanese confidence in traditional naval warfare begins crumbling under weight of American innovation that has transformed naval combat from contest of seamanship and courage into systematic application of industrial capacity and electronic systems that eliminate human factors that previously determined battle outcomes. Yamashiro's massive armor and powerful guns, designed to dominate traditional battleship engagements, provide no protection against weapons that attack below waterline, where even heaviest armor cannot prevent catastrophic flooding that dooms any ship, regardless of size or fighting capability. 0331 hours, multiple torpedo impacts. Battleship Fuse disappears beneath Surigao Strait waters within 4 minutes of receiving hits from 6 American torpedoes that explode simultaneously along her hull, demonstrating devastating effectiveness of Mark 15 weapons against even heavily armored targets when applied in coordinated mass attacks that overwhelm damage control capabilities, regardless of crew training or ship design excellence. The mathematical precision with which American torpedoes find their targets proves superiority of radar-guided fire control systems over traditional optical methods that require visual contact in favorable weather conditions to achieve accuracy levels that American electronic systems exceed routinely in any visibility conditions, day or night, in any weather that does not physically prevent ship operations. Destroyer Yamagumo breaks apart from torpedo explosions that detonate her magazines, creating fireball visible for miles and demonstrating fragility of even military vessels when subjected to explosive forces that modern weapons deliver with precision impossible using traditional naval gunnery that relies on direct hits from projectiles following ballistic trajectories affected by range, weather, and target movement factors that torpedo attacks bypass through underwater approach that eliminates most variables affecting surface weapon accuracy. Japanese formation discipline collapses as individual ships maneuver desperately to avoid additional torpedo attacks, but their optical fire control systems cannot track American destroyers that withdraw into darkness after launching weapons, leaving Japanese gunners firing at muzzle flashes and estimated positions rather than confirmed targets visible to range-finding equipment designed for daylight engagement ranges measured in thousands rather than tens of thousands of yards. The technological gap between American radar-guided systems and Japanese optical equipment has created tactical situation where enemy forces remain effectively invisible, while Japanese ships provide clear targets illuminated by their own gunfire and burning consorts that create perfect silhouettes against dark waters. Traditional Japanese night fighting training emphasized superior visual acuity and patient observation that compensated for technological limitations. But these skills prove useless against opponents whose electronic systems provide information quality and quantity impossible for human senses to achieve, regardless of training excellence or individual dedication to combat effectiveness that has characterized Japanese naval tradition since steam replaced sail as primary propulsion method for warships designed to fight gun duels at visual ranges where seamanship and courage determine victory more than technological superiority. 0345 hours. American battleship line emerges from darkness with mathematical precision that demonstrates radar-guided navigation and fire control coordination impossible using traditional optical systems. Their massive hulls appearing like steel mountains rising from black waters. As USS Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, Tennessee, California, and Mississippi achieve perfect crossing the T formation that maximizes their firepower while minimizing Japanese ability to return effective fire using battle line tactics that have governed naval warfare since ironclad vessels first proved armor superiority over wooden hulls. Admiral Nishimura realizes his surviving ships face not just superior numbers, but overwhelming technological advantage that makes traditional naval courage meaningless against opponents who see everything while remaining invisible. Coordinate attacks through electronic communication systems and deliver firepower with accuracy impossible using optical fire control that requires visual contact and favorable conditions to achieve hit probabilities that American radar systems exceed routinely, regardless of weather, visibility, or range factors that have limited naval gunnery effectiveness throughout history. The American battleships opened fire with their 14 and 16-inch guns, using radar-directed fire control solutions calculated before visual contact. Their salvos bracketing targets with first shots that traditionally required multiple ranging efforts to achieve, demonstrating technological superiority so complete that Japanese tactical excellence has become irrelevant against opponents who have eliminated human limitations through electronic systems that provide godlike awareness and precision. USS Pennsylvania's 16-inch guns speak with voices of thunder that announce new age of naval warfare, where electronic systems determine battle outcomes more than crew training or individual ship excellence. Her armor-piercing shells weighing 2,700 pounds each, striking Yamashiro with devastating effect that proves even heavily armored battleships cannot survive concentrated fire from multiple opponents shooting with radar-guided accuracy. The mathematical precision of American gunnery, achieving hit rates exceeding 80% compared to 15% typical for optical fire control systems operating in darkness, demonstrates technological revolution that has transformed naval combat from contest of seamanship and courage into systematic application of industrial capacity and electronic superiority that eliminates traditional factors determining battle outcomes. Japanese return fire proves largely ineffective against targets maneuvering with coordination impossible before radio communication, while their optical fire control systems struggle to track multiple opponents whose radar-guided weapons maintain perfect firing solutions regardless of evasive action or weather conditions that have protected naval vessels throughout history when combat ranges required visual contact and favorable visibility for accurate gunnery. Admiral Nishimura stands on Yamashiro's burning bridge, watching his battle line disintegrate under American firepower that strikes with mechanical precision using traditional gunnery methods. realizing that 400 years of naval warfare tradition has become obsolete in single engagement that demonstrates superiority of American industrial capacity and technological innovation over Japanese tactical excellence and fighting spirit that cannot bridge gaps created by electronic systems beyond Japanese ability to produce or counter. His flagship staggers under repeated hits from radar-guided shells that find targets with accuracy surpassing daylight visual observation, while damage control efforts prove inadequate against flooding caused by underwater torpedo damage combined with above-water destruction from coordinated battleship fire that overwhelms repair capabilities, regardless of crew training or dedication to duty, that has characterized Japanese naval service since steam propulsion replaced sail. The Admiral's final understanding that traditional naval warfare has ended permanently comes not through dramatic revelation, but through mathematical demonstration that electronic systems and industrial capacity determine battle outcomes more than individual heroism or tactical innovation developed through centuries of combat experience, that American technology has made instantly irrelevant. 0419 hours. Yamashiro capsizes and sinks beneath Surigao Strait waters, carrying Admiral Nishimura and most of his crew to depths that hide evidence of technological revolution that destroyed Japanese naval power more completely than direct combat losses, proving that American industrial capacity to produce radar systems, advanced weapons, and electronic communication networks has created military advantages so overwhelming that traditional fighting qualities cannot compensate for technological gaps that make courage meaningless against mathematical superiority. Heavy cruiser Mogami retreats northward with severe damage, while destroyer Shigure alone survives intact to report disaster that eliminated Japanese Southern Force as effective fighting unit within 4 hours of engagement beginning, demonstrating efficiency with which American technological and tactical superiority can destroy traditional naval forces regardless of their training excellence or fighting determination. The last battleship versus battleship engagement in naval history ends with complete American victory achieved through electronic systems and coordinated tactics that prove superiority of industrial innovation over traditional military virtues that have governed naval warfare since humans first fought organized battles on water, using weapons whose effectiveness depended on individual skill and courage, rather than technological systems that eliminate human limitations through mathematical precision impossible for previous generations of naval officers to imagine or achieve. The silence following Yamashiro's final plunge beneath tropical waters carries weight of historical transformation that extends far beyond single battle outcome, marking moment when 4 centuries of naval warfare tradition surrendered to American technological revolution that proved industrial capacity and electronic innovation more decisive than individual heroism or tactical brilliance developed through generations of combat experience. Destroyer Shigure's radio report to Combined Fleet Headquarters describes disaster in terms that Japanese Naval Command initially refuses to believe, unable to comprehend how overwhelming American superiority in radar systems, coordinated communication, and advanced weapons could eliminate entire battle force so quickly and completely that traditional naval warfare concepts no longer apply to Pacific conflict, where electronic systems determine outcomes more than seamanship or courage. The mathematical precision with which American forces detected, tracked, and destroyed Japanese ships demonstrates technological superiority so complete that traditional military virtues become irrelevant against opponents who see everything, communicate instantly, and coordinate attacks with accuracy impossible using optical instruments and visual signals that define naval combat since ironclad vessels first proved armor superiority over wooden hulls in previous century, when combat ranges measured hundreds rather than tens of thousands of yards. Commander Phillips aboard USS McDermott studies after-action reports that document American technological achievement with statistics revealing scope of electronic revolution that transformed naval warfare overnight. His destroyer's radar systems having tracked enemy movements with precision surpassing human observation capabilities, while Mark 15 torpedoes achieved hit rates exceeding 80% against heavily armored targets that previous weapons could not penetrate reliably. The battle demonstrated superiority of American industrial capacity to produce advanced electronic systems, improved weapons, and coordinated communication networks that created tactical advantages so overwhelming that Japanese tactical excellence in fighting spirit could not bridge technological gaps that made traditional naval courage meaningless against mathematical certainty of radar-guided destruction. American victory at Surigao Strait established new paradigm for naval warfare, emphasizing electronic systems, coordinated tactics, and industrial production capacity over individual ship excellence and traditional fighting qualities that had governed maritime combat since humans first organized naval battles, using weapons whose effectiveness depended on personal skill rather than technological systems that eliminate human limitations through mechanical precision impossible for previous generations to achieve or imagine. The strategic implications of Surigao Strait victory extend throughout Pacific War as Japanese Naval Command realizes traditional tactical doctrine cannot counter American technological superiority that grows stronger with each passing month as industrial production increases radar installations, improves weapon reliability, and develops communication systems beyond Japanese capacity to match or neutralize effectively. American success proves that democratic industrial society can produce military advantages through technological innovation and coordinated production that totalitarian systems cannot achieve despite ideological dedication and individual sacrifice that Japanese forces demonstrate consistently throughout Pacific conflict. The battle establishes foundations for modern electronic warfare doctrine that continues throughout Cold War and beyond, proving American industrial and technological leadership in military systems that determine national survival more than traditional military virtues or individual heroism that cannot compensate for systematic disadvantages in equipment quality and production capacity that democratic societies excel at developing through competitive innovation and scientific research. Captain Coward's destroyer squadron returns to Leyte Gulf, having demonstrated tactical coordination impossible before radio communication and radar guidance. Their coordinated torpedo attacks proving superiority of American technological approach to naval warfare that treats combat as engineering problem solved through superior equipment and systematic application of overwhelming material advantages, rather than individual heroism and traditional fighting skills that Japanese tactics emphasize. The precision with which 27 destroyers executed simultaneous attacks using electronic coordination represents revolution in naval tactics that makes traditional battle line formations obsolete against opponents who can coordinate movements and weapons with mathematical accuracy impossible using visual signals and optical fire control systems that require favorable weather and visibility conditions to achieve effectiveness levels that American radar systems exceed routinely, regardless of environmental factors that have limited naval operations throughout maritime history. American victory proves that industrial democracy can produce military innovations that totalitarian societies cannot match, despite their emphasis on discipline and sacrifice that cannot substitute for technological superiority achieved through competitive research and development programs that free societies excel at organizing and funding through democratic political processes that encourage innovation more effectively than authoritarian control systems. October 26, 1944, dawn. Surigao Strait waters reflect tropical sunlight off oil slicks and debris fields that mark underwater graves of Japanese battleships, whose massive hulls rest on ocean floor as monuments to naval warfare era that ended when traditional tactics met American technological revolution and proved inadequate against radar-guided coordination and advanced weapon systems. The mathematical finality of American victory demonstrates how industrial capacity and electronic innovation can eliminate military advantages built over centuries of combat experience, tactical development, and individual excellence that cannot bridge technological gaps created by democratic societies' superior ability to organize scientific research, competitive innovation, and coordinated production that totalitarian systems cannot match, despite ideological dedication and personal sacrifice that characterize Japanese military service. Search and rescue operations recover fewer than 200 Japanese survivors from forces that numbered over 4,000 men, proving devastating effectiveness of American weapons and tactics that achieved destruction ratios impossible using traditional naval gunnery and torpedo attacks that relied on visual observation and individual ship excellence rather than coordinated mass application of overwhelming technological superiority, designed through systematic engineering analysis of combat requirements. The strategic impact of Surigao Strait disaster reverberates throughout Japanese naval command, as surviving officers realize traditional battle line tactics cannot survive contact with American electronic warfare capabilities that provide informational and tactical advantages so overwhelming that courage and seamanship become meaningless against opponents who see everything while remaining invisible. Coordinate attacks through radio networks and deliver firepower with mechanical precision surpassing human capabilities regardless of training excellence or fighting determination. Japanese naval doctrine emphasizing individual ship superiority and night fighting skills proved completely inadequate against American technological approach that treats naval combat as engineering problem solved through superior equipment and systematic application of mathematical principles, rather than traditional military virtues that cannot compensate for electronic systems that eliminate human limitations through mechanical precision impossible for optical instruments to achieve under any conditions. The psychological impact on Japanese naval personnel equals material losses, as traditional confidence in superior seamanship and fighting spirit crumbles under weight of evidence that American industrial capacity has created military advantages that individual excellence cannot overcome, regardless of personal dedication or tactical innovation, developed through combat experience. American technological dominance demonstrated at Surigao Strait accelerates Japanese naval collapse as remaining fleet units avoid surface engagements against opponents whose radar systems and coordinated tactics make traditional naval warfare suicidal for forces lacking equivalent electronic capabilities and industrial support necessary to maintain competitive equipment standards. The battle proves that modern naval warfare requires industrial base capable of producing advanced radar systems, improved weapons, reliable communication networks, and coordinated training programs that democratic societies organize more effectively than totalitarian systems, despite their emphasis on discipline and sacrifice that cannot substitute for technological superiority achieved through scientific research and competitive innovation that free political systems encourage better than authoritarian control methods. Japanese recognition that traditional naval excellence cannot bridge technological gaps created by American industrial capacity forces strategic reassessment that acknowledges inevitable defeat in Pacific conflict, where electronic systems and production capacity determine outcomes more than individual heroism or tactical brilliance that previous generations relied upon to achieve victory through superior seamanship and fighting determination. The transformation of naval warfare from contest of individual ship excellence to systematic application of technological superiority represents fundamental shift in military affairs that continues influencing maritime strategy throughout Cold War period and beyond, establishing American dominance in electronic warfare systems and coordinated tactical doctrine that proves decisive advantage in subsequent conflicts where radar guidance, communication networks, and advanced weapons determine battle outcomes more than traditional military virtues or numerical superiority that cannot compensate for systematic disadvantages in equipment quality and tactical coordination. Surigao Strait victory validates American approach to military innovation through democratic competition, scientific research, and industrial cooperation that produces technological advantages totalitarian societies cannot match, despite their emphasis on ideological unity and personal sacrifice that proves insufficient against mathematical superiority achieved through electronic systems that eliminate human limitations and weather factors that have influenced naval combat since humans first organized maritime warfare, using primitive weapons whose effectiveness depended on individual skill rather than mechanical precision, that American industry has perfected through systematic engineering analysis and competitive development programs that democratic societies excel at organizing and funding through political processes that encourage innovation more effectively than authoritarian control systems that emphasize conformity over creativity. Historical analysis reveals Surigao Strait engagement as decisive demonstration that American industrial democracy could produce military innovations surpassing totalitarian society's capacity to develop or counter effectively, establishing technological and tactical precedents that influence naval warfare doctrine throughout remainder of 20th century and beyond. The mathematical precision with which American forces detected, tracked, and destroyed Japanese battle line using radar systems, coordinated communication, and advanced weapons proves superiority of democratic scientific research and competitive innovation over authoritarian control methods that emphasize discipline and sacrifice but cannot achieve technological breakthroughs requiring creative thinking and systematic engineering analysis that free societies organize more effectively through political processes encouraging individual initiative and scientific competition. Japanese defeat at Surigao Strait represents more than tactical disaster, demonstrating fundamental inadequacy of traditional military virtues against electronic warfare systems and coordinated tactics that American industry developed through democratic cooperation between civilian scientists, military officers, and industrial engineers working together toward common goals without ideological restrictions that limit totalitarian society's ability to innovate effectively in rapidly changing technological environment. The strategic consequences of American victory extend throughout Pacific War, as Japanese Naval Command realizes traditional surface warfare has become impossible against opponents whose radar capabilities and coordinated tactics make honorable battle suicidal for forces lacking equivalent electronic systems and industrial support necessary to maintain competitive equipment standards in conflict, where technological superiority determines outcomes more than individual heroism or fighting determination. American success at Surigao Strait validates democratic approach to military innovation through scientific research, competitive development, and industrial cooperation that proves more effective than totalitarian methods, emphasizing ideological unity and personal sacrifice that cannot substitute for systematic advantages in equipment quality and tactical coordination achieved through free political processes that encourage creativity and scientific advancement better than authoritarian control systems designed to maintain conformity rather than promote innovation required for technological leadership in modern warfare, where electronic systems eliminate traditional factors that previously determined naval combat outcomes. The technological revolution demonstrated at Surigao Strait establishes foundations for modern electronic warfare doctrine that continues influencing military strategy throughout Cold War period and beyond, proving American industrial and scientific leadership in developing radar systems, advanced weapons, communication networks, and coordinated tactical methods that democratic societies produce more effectively than totalitarian governments, despite their emphasis on discipline and collective sacrifice that cannot compensate for systematic disadvantages in research capability and innovative thinking required for military technological advancement. Japanese recognition that traditional naval excellence cannot overcome American electronic superiority forces strategic reassessment, acknowledging inevitable defeat in Pacific conflict, where industrial capacity and technological innovation determine battle results more than individual courage or tactical brilliance, developed through combat experience that proves inadequate against mathematical precision of radar-guided weapons and coordinated attacks impossible using optical instruments and visual coordination methods that define naval warfare throughout previous centuries, when human limitations determine combat effectiveness more than mechanical systems that eliminate weather and visibility factors affecting traditional gunnery and maneuvering techniques. The permanent transformation of naval warfare from individual ship excellence to systematic application of technological superiority represents fundamental change in military affairs that validates American democratic approach to scientific research, competitive innovation, and industrial cooperation as more effective method for developing military advantages than totalitarian systems emphasizing ideological conformity and centralized control that limit creative thinking and scientific advancement necessary for technological leadership in modern conflicts. Surigao Strait victory demonstrates that free societies can organize and fund military research programs more effectively than authoritarian governments through democratic political processes that encourage individual initiative and scientific competition, producing radar systems, advanced weapons, and coordinated tactics that prove decisive advantages against opponents whose traditional military virtues and fighting determination cannot bridge technological gaps created by superior industrial capacity and innovative thinking that democratic societies excel at developing through competitive cooperation between civilian scientists and military officers working toward common goals without ideological restrictions that hamper totalitarian societies' ability to achieve breakthrough innovations required for military success in electronic warfare environment where mechanical precision determines battle outcomes more than human courage or tactical skill developed through traditional combat training methods. When Admiral Nishimura's Yamashiro disappeared beneath Surigao Strait waters on October 25, 1944, she carried with her 4 centuries of naval warfare tradition that could not survive contact with American technological revolution, proving that electronic systems and industrial capacity had replaced seamanship and courage as primary factors determining maritime combat outcomes in modern warfare, where radar guidance and coordinated communication eliminate human limitations that previously governed battle results. The last battleship engagement in naval history lasted 4 hours and 19 minutes, demonstrating mathematical precision with which American forces could detect, track, and destroy traditional naval formations using technological advantages so overwhelming that Japanese tactical excellence and fighting spirit became meaningless against opponents who achieved godlike awareness through electronic systems and delivered destruction with mechanical accuracy impossible using optical instruments that required visual contact and favorable weather conditions to achieve effectiveness levels that American radar systems exceeded routinely, regardless of environmental factors that had limited naval operations throughout maritime history. The silence following Yamashiro's final plunge marked the moment when tradition met technology and technology won decisively, establishing new paradigm for naval warfare that emphasized industrial innovation and electronic coordination over individual heroism and tactical brilliance that could not compensate for systematic disadvantages in equipment quality and production capacity that democratic societies develop more effectively than totalitarian systems through competitive research and scientific advancement. The mathematical finality of American victory at Surigao Strait proves that modern military conflicts require industrial bases capable of producing advanced electronic systems, improved weapons, reliable communication networks, and coordinated training programs that democratic political processes organize more effectively than authoritarian control methods. Despite their emphasis on discipline and sacrifice that cannot substitute for technological superiority achieved through scientific research and competitive innovation that free societies encourage better than centralized systems designed to maintain ideological conformity rather than promote creative thinking required for military technological leadership. Japanese survivors returning to fleet headquarters carried reports describing disaster in terms that Naval Command initially refused to believe, unable to comprehend how American radar capabilities and coordinated tactics could eliminate entire battle force so quickly and completely that traditional naval warfare concepts no longer applied to Pacific conflict, where electronic systems determined outcomes more than seamanship or individual excellence that had governed maritime combat since humans first organized naval battles. Using primitive weapons whose competence depended on personal skill, naturally than mechanical precision, that American industry perfected through systematic engineering analysis and competitive development programs. Admiral Nishimura and his battleships represented the end of an era when courage and seamanship could overcome material disadvantages through superior tactics and fighting determination. While American destroyermen with their radar systems and coordinated torpedoes ushered in electronic age of warfare, where technological superiority and industrial capacity determine battle outcomes more than traditional military virtues that cannot bridge gaps created by scientific innovation and democratic cooperation between civilian researchers and military officers working toward common goals without ideological restrictions. The technological revolution demonstrated at Surigao Strait continues influencing military strategy throughout remainder of 20th century and beyond, establishing American leadership in electronic warfare doctrine, advanced weapons development, and coordinated tactical methods that prove decisive advantages in subsequent conflicts where radar guidance, communication networks, and systematic coordination determine victory more than individual heroism or numerical superiority that cannot compensate for systematic disadvantages in equipment quality and innovative thinking that free societies excel at developing through competitive political processes, encouraging certified advancement and military technological innovation. At Surigao Strait, tradition met technology, and technology won decisively, proving that 400 years of naval warfare doctrine could not survive contact with American electronic systems and industrial innovation that transformed maritime combat from contest of seamanship and courage into systematic application of overwhelming technological superiority achieved through democratic scientific research and competitive development programs that totalitarian societies could not match, despite their emphasis on ideological unity and personal sacrifice that proved inadequate against mathematical precision of radar-guided weapons and coordinated attacks impossible using traditional optical instruments and visual coordination methods that had defined naval warfare since ironclad vessels first demonstrated armor superiority over wooden hulls in previous century. When combat effectiveness depended on human skill rather than electronic systems that eliminate weather and visibility limitations, affecting traditional gunnery techniques throughout maritime history.